Hi, it's Thomas. This is my FASN 2121 lingerie project. So the agenda for this project is first research, followed by my half bustier, my swimsuit and bra block, which I lost after class, so hopefully that's okay. My bottom one walk off, my bottom one analysis, my bottom two walk off, my bottom two analysis, my bra walk-off, and my bra sample analysis, followed by references. Now to get into some research. So firstly, it's important to go over some intimate types. So for bras, we have the t-shirt bra, which is smooth and meant to be non-visible under a layer such as a t-shirt. It features slightly shaped cups, often foam or spacer cups, with no visible seams. Molded cups are either thermoformed or stitched spacers. It's lined for opacity, has narrow seams at the band, has underwire and little foam lining. The balconette has wide set straps, less cup coverage that provides lift and roundness to the breast, a neckline that sits across the upper breast, 2 to 3 piece cup design, partial underwire, firm underband, and sling that contributes to projecting at the center front. The plunge has a deep center front, best for low neck garments, molded or padded cleavage, and a strong underband. It has a narrow gore, angled cups, molded or padded cleavage, and a strong underband. The push-up bra has extra padding or an internal sling to provide lift and added cleavage, has molded pads or removable inserts, has angled cup seams to push cleavage inwards. The full coverage. It has max coverage and support, often for large breasts or for comfort. It has a multi-piece cup design, strong underband, full side coverage, and seam shaping. The bralette is soft, it's not lined or wired, and it's comfortable with minimal structure. It's made of a stretch lace or a knit. It either has seamed or triangle cups with light elastic banding. The sports bra, it's designed to be highly conductive to movement. Its supports ranges from light to high impact. Compression causing seamed cups, wide elastic banding, moisture wicking fabric, and reinforced straps. The strapless bra has bare shoulder construction, can be convertible with a strap option, has wide and firm underband and silicone grippers and structured mortal cups. So the firm underband and silicone grippers are obviously important to this design as it's strapless, so it needs extra support so it doesn't fall down. The bustier, so extends down the torso for shaping, often used in bridal and fashionable dressing, has multiple boning channels with corsetry elements. Now going into underwear, we have the brief, which is the classic full coverage, full seat and mid-high rise, has a full gusset, multi-needle waistband finish or soft elastic. We have the bikini, which is a moderate coverage, lower rise than briefs. That's the most common casual wear style. It has narrower sides, standard gusset, and elasticized leg opening. Then we have the hipster, which sits at the hips and has a wider coverage in the bikini. Therefore has a wider waistband, and it's often made from a stretch knit, cotton, and has a cotton or modal gusset. High waist, high rise to or above the navel. It's good for body shaping and known for its vintage aesthetic. Has longer body panels, may have integrated shaping panels or a power mesh. Boy shorts, they're rectangular cut with a hip coverage and short legs. They're sporty and comfortable, and Zoe actually says these are the most comfortable in her opinion. They have longer leg lines, flat seams like flat lock, and cotton or modal gusset. And then we have the cheeky, which has less rear coverage, more than a thong, and it gives a lifted appearance. And it has cut lines that accentuate the seat of the wearer. Then we have the thong, which is minimal behind coverage, eliminates visibility under garments, has a narrow rear strap, smaller triangular front, and gusset placement is very important in this design for comfort. Then we have the seamless, which is laser cut or bonded edges. It's used under tight-fitting clothing. It has bonded hems, and it's normally made of a micro fiber knit, and it has minimal seaming. And then lastly, we have shapewear, which is compressive with a smooth appearance. It's made of a high compressive power mesh usually, and it has graded elastic and reinforced panel design. So now to talk about cups, specifically shape and seams. Cup shapes and the direction and placement of seams control the projection, lift, roundness, and overall shape of the breast and the bra. Vertical seams tend to provide an uplift, creating projection. Horizontal seams push forward and round. And three-piece cups design provides balance and support. Some common cup shapes include molded, vertical seam, three-piece, balconette, plunge, triangle, bullet, and bandeau. Seamed cups are especially useful in providing shaping, where relatively thin or delicate fabrics are used in construction. Molded cups are likely used in bras with no visible seam to provide a smoother shape. Pattern alterations such as darting and manipulating seam lines are more common in smaller batch productions or in more expensive garments, because as we all know, extra work normally translates to extra money. When comparing price points of bras, we often see the following. Cheap bras normally have single-stitched molded cups or poor quality seamed cups with a lack of shaping accuracy. Thus, we see a lot of fit variability, and it's not uncommon to have cups pancake with extensive wear after a wash or with poor storage. Moderate price bras, we see improved seam construction, normally 2, 3-piece, or even more. We see better quality molded or spacer foam. We see improved patterning. It may include darts or just better 2 to 3-piece seams. And better stitching, all leading to more consistent fit and longer lasting garment. Expensive bras, we see carefully drafted multi-piece cups, seaming for a specific shape, for example, the vertical 3-part seaming and multi-dart shaping. We see high quality spacer foam, all leading to the best fit, longevity, and aesthetic. It is important to note that expensive garments can be poorly constructed as well. We live in the age of branding and influencer marketing, which can influence the price of the garment, but not influence the construction. Thus, we live in a misleading age where price does not necessarily dictate quality. Now into padding. So padding has 3 main functions. Thicker foam is used to provide a push-up effect. Thin spacer foams are used for a smooth shape under garments, often a little bit of shaping, less bulk, and lots of breathability. Removable pads allow for adjustability. Type of pads include polyurethane foam or PU foam, memory foam, and spacer foam. Looking at different price points, we see quality increase. So in cheap bras, padding is made from low density polyurethane foam that is normally glued rather than laminated and is normally seen through thin fabrics. This type of foam has poor resiliency and commonly pancakes, especially after the wash. Moderate price bras, we see better polyurethane foam used or basic spacer foam being used in construction. Cups are laminated to facings, which increases durability and shape retention over time. Expensive bras normally have high quality spacer foams, molded foams, engineered memory foams, or multi-density padding. Lamination during construction is of high quality and highly resistant to damage caused in wash and with extensive wear. And the two kind of paddings I found in my research, from the NYX one, the first photo, we see the use of a polyurethane foam cup, and in the second one we see the use of a spacer foam, which makes sense because the second one is athletic design, so you would want the cup and the padding to be breathable. So now into edge finishes. Some common finishes amongst women's intimates, bras, and underwear are picot and scallop elastic, which is a decorative edge finish, fold over elastic, binding, picot lace, scallop lace, and silicone backed edges, which hold the garments in place against the skin and is super common in athletic wear. Narrow picot elastics are the most common for underwear edges as they provide stretch and comfort. Soft fold over or piping is common in the neckline of bras. And cheap intimates, we see narrow decorative elastics with poor tensile life, glue trims, lots of visible raw edges, and single seam finishes. Many design and construction choices that would irritate the skin of the wearer. In moderately priced intimates, we see improved in construction and design, such as better quality decorative elastics, clean fold-over finishes, better consistency, and elastic stability. In expensive intimates, we see the highest level of quality and design choices. We see hand finishing, silk or delicate lace edge finishes, microelastics with the highest level of comfortability and durability, concealed stitching, and a careful attention to edge finishing and stabilization. In my research, we kind of have 4 different examples of edge finishes. In the first photo we see just a turned, we've seen the turned and zigzag stitched finish. In the second one, we see a lace finish, which is from Urban Outfitters, and the lace was actually not very stretchy and pretty rough to the touch. In the third photo, we see bonded edge finish, and in the fourth photo, we see an interesting one, which I thought was really cool, which was a lettuce edge finish on underwear. Now going into gussets. Gussets are this crotch lining in women's underwear. Gussets are important because they provide hygiene control through breathability, moisture control, comfort, and reinforcement. Most gussets are made from cotton or cotton blends, even if the remainder of the garment is made from a synthetic fabric. Gussets have 3 common shapes, square, diamond, or extended. Choice between these depends on what kind of underwear design, the intended coverage, and the comfort level. Gussets are important features to women's hygiene, thus absorbability and moisture control are factors. Modal is an extremely breathable semi-synthetic fabric known for its moisture wicking, silky smooth finish, and comfortability. In some high-end underwear, we might even see antimicrobial finishes on garments. Now looking at price points, and cheap underwear, we see single synthetic layering of gussets. We see poor coverage, weak shape retention, which just leads to it prone to shrinking and rolling. And moderately priced, we see cotton gussets. We see full coverage and better construction. In expensive garments, we see organic cotton or modal, multi-layer absorbent systems, and antimicrobial finishes, and just in general a superior shaping. In the examples we see, in the most expensive one, we see from Diva, we see that the top of the gusset is actually sewn into the underwear so it's not loose. And the second one from Lychy and Rose, we see it loose. And then the third one from Urban Outfitters, we see it not only it loose, but it actually is already rolling over, and this even before someone has purchased and worn it. Now for some finishing techniques. So stitches and other construction techniques, we see overlocking for stretch finishes, we see cover stitch for hems, we see a narrow zigzag for attaching elastics and lace, and we also see bonded or ultrasonic welding for seamless finishes, where it fuses the edges together without the use of thread, and it's super beneficial to reduce irritation. Yeah. Now looking at finishing techniques and price points. In cheap intimates, we see basic overlock and single straight stitch being used. We see poor quality in thread and tension control. We see which leads to poor edge stabilization and increases the likelihood of threads popping. In moderately priced intimates, we see the use of more cover stitch hems and reinforced stress points. Controlled stitch density, which just shows more pre-thought and less layering of stitches. In expensive intimates, we see a lot of more seam bonding, ultrasonic welding, finer finishes, such as finishes done by hand, and just a better overall quality control. In the examples I show in Lychy and Rose, we see 2 layers of zigzags, which probably could have been done with 1. And then in comparing it to the Diva, we see only a single layer of stitching. And these are both using the same kind of edge finish, which is just folding over the self fabric and then stitching it down. So it's interesting to see the difference. Now going into trims and notion. Common trims and notions include elastics like picot, plush, wide banded, and fold over. We see underwire, which is used in bras. We see rings and sliders, hooks and eyes, closures, silicone grippers, and decorative lace. Now looking at trims and notions and price points, the difference in these elements when comparing our 3 different price points is in quality. In cheaper garments, we see plastic rings, sliders, thin underwires, and elastics with poor recovery. In moderate to expensive garments, we see more metal hardware, elastics with better recovery, custom hardware, and covered underwire channels. In the first photo, we can see a covered underwire channel from Diva, which is a very expensive women's intimate brand. In the second one, we see a hook and eye closure from Urban Outfitters. And in the third one, we see rings and sliders in a bra from Lychy and Rose. And this kind of shows how they use a mixture of metal and plastic here, which I believe is a poor design choice. But again, Lychy and Rose is not a high-end kind of garment company, so it's kind of typical to see this. Now looking at stretch versus non-stretch areas and reinforcement materials. An important feature of lingerie is the mixing of stretch and non-stretch materials. Stretch fabrics such as knits, power mesh, and elastics are used to provide comfort and mobility. Non-stretch, like molded cups, lace facings, woven backings, are used to provide shape and support. For example, the middle panel of the bra or the gore is normally made from a non-stretch woven to provide support, while the back is normally made out of a stretchable net such as power mesh for comfort. Some reinforcement materials include power mesh, stay tape, boning, underwire, multi-layer lamination, twill tape. Reinforced techniques include layering, channeling, multi-layers, and cross-back patterns. Now, when we compare price points, In cheap intimates, we see a lot of single knits, which have poor structural support and poor durability and shape retention over time. And moderate price intimates, we see intentional uses of mixed materials, stretch and non-stretch, leading to improved stability, comfort, and shape retention and durability. In expensive intimates, we see the highest quality of engineered fabrics that have directional control. We see a wider usage of lamination and the use of graded elastic zones that provide lift and restraint. In cheaper garments, it's common to see single layer bands without the use of underlining, such as power mesh. We see thin, poor recovering elastics, minimal use of reinforcement, which all lead to garments having predictable stretching out and short lifetimes. In moderate price garments, we see the use of power mesh as an underlining in the band and wing of bras. We see better quality underwire encasing, multiple layer bands for improved support. In expensive garments, we see the use of multi-density lamination, custom molded underwire channels, higher GSM power meshes, internal slings, and structured cups for improved support and an increased life of the garment. Now looking at the stitch types found in women's intimates, we see straight or lock stitches for non-stretch seams and top stitching. We see zigzags for attaching elastics to stretch fabrics. As it stretches with the fabric, we see overlock for seam finishing and stitching stretch fabrics together. We see cover stitch for hems and decorative functional top stitching. It's a clean top look and serge bottom. We see bar tacking for reinforcement of stress points and tacking down seam allowances. When using specific stitches, it's important to be cognizant of the stitches per inch. Too narrow of a stitch when using a zigzag negates the function of the stitch. In intimates, when on stretch fabrics, as the narrower and closer together the stitch is, the more it restricts the stitch of the material, which is backwards thinking. When looking at stitch types and price points, in cheap garments, we see fewer stitch types being used. We see improper stitch choices. For example, we will see straight stitches used when it should be a zigzag, which is more conducive to stretch. We see low quality thread that is not conducive to stretch and breaks easily. We see improper tension control. We see it being too tight, and we see stitches popping when stretched. In moderately priced and expensive garments, we see proper stitch combinations, the use of overlock, cover stitch, and zigzag, and we see the proper SPI and tension control being used, which all leads to just a better garment and a garment that will last. This is my bustier. For bustier structures, it's super important that we see elements such as channeling for boning, and we see batting used to give shape in the breast. Another important element is the use of the understitch, which gives it a clean finish at the top. So here's me walking off my first underwear block. As we can see, the crotches line up. And then we see the side seams line up. This design has 2 layers, so that's why we see 2 front and back pieces. Right now we can see that the gusset is lining up. Oh, sorry, it was the wrong way. Oh, there we go. The gusset lines up. Nice. And now we see the other piece of this garment design. Boom, the side seams line up. And the crotch seams line up. For the first bottom, I drew inspiration from my research, specifically a pair of underwear I found at Urban Outfitters. This design features a double layer construction of power mesh as the base layer and stretch lace as exterior layer. The power mesh layer is where we see the lettuce edge finish. The lace layer is finished with a fold over elastic. I had an issue with layering stitches in my first attempt at this underwear, where I attached the fold over elastic first with a zigzag, then attached the power mesh with another layer of zigzag. I found that this restricted the important stretching areas of the garment. One issue I found with my second method was it was very hard to control the layers, specifically when going over the gusset, where it was not attached perfectly. However, I did not try attaching the gusset first prior to attaching any layering and the fold over elastic, so that probably would have been better. I also believe that my crotch pattern is too wide, as it sort of bunches out when it's on the mannequin, so I'd probably move 1 to 2 centimeters if I were to redo this or do it again. But overall, I think this design is really cool. It was definitely challenging layering at all and kind of not layering stitches. But overall, I'm very happy with this garment. This is just the garment off of the mannequin and some other close-ups that you can take a look at. This is me walking off my second underwear. Right now we can see the side seams line up. We see the crotch seams line up. And then we'll see the gusset. There we go, the gusset lines up. Perfect. For my second bottom, I drew inspiration from an assignment I had in my design class this semester, where I made a matching bra and bottom with a layer of lace, like almost a nightie, to add some coverage, but in a sexy, mysterious way. For the attachment of the coverage element, the red lace, I took the measurements of the circumference of the waist of the garment and cut out a rectangle piece of lace to attach. Then after attaching it, I cut along the bottom of the lace, following the embroidery so that it doesn't fray or fall apart. And this kind of like followed what we talked about in class, but we're using lace as almost an applique when we're doing lingerie or intimate wears. Again, I believe that my crotch pattern measurement was off by 1 to 2 centimeters, as it bunches up a little bit when it's on the mannequin. So if I were to redo this, I would adjust that in the pattern. But overall, I'm very happy with the design and the construction of this garment. Yeah. A cool outcome of my bottom two is that it can be styled in a second way. I wish I could say this was intentional, but I really kind of discovered this when I was putting it on a mannequin. But so you can style this garment with the lace nightie pulled up to create almost a high-waisted underwear, which was really cool. Complete accident, but pretty cool. Here are some photos of it off the body, just so you can look at it off the body and see how it lays just naturally. Here is my bra walking off. I'll start the video. Right now we're going to check that the sides line up. Nice, the sides line up. And now we're going to check that 2 pieces of the 3-piece cup design line up. It's curved, so you follow along the curve. Nice, lines up. And now we'll see if the top panel lines up. Nice. So the curves here of the seams are important to the shaping of the bra, as if they were just straight, they wouldn't give a 3D effect or like an area or space for the breast to sit in. So the curves are really important to any sort of bra cup design. Nice, it lines up. And now into the undercarriage of the bra. Next time I probably should have taped these down so it's easier to kind of see that it fits, but I think this gives a good idea. Again, there's going to be space at the middle of the bra so that it could be folded over when finished. That's why you see that it doesn't match it right to the edge of center front. Nice, lines up. Now going to my bra sample. When patterning for the cups of the bra, I played around with the shape and curve of the seam. For shape, I started off way too big and had to reduce the size a lot. I originally planned to fit my bra for Zoe, but she was not there when I was taking photos, so it's on a mannequin. Also super thankful for Zoe for lending me underwear and bras to reference when I was pattern making, because I unfortunately lack a girlfriend and women's undergarments. For the curve, which connects the two pieces of the cup, I found that straightening the curve led to a more distinguishable point, so I returned to the original curve. I originally wanted to attempt a bullet bra, which straightening the seam of those two pieces of the cup would have provided the shape, I think. But I panicked and returned to an easier bra. In constructing the bra and the underwear, I had issues with the industrial zigzag machine. I'm unsure of what the exact problem is, but I believe it has something to do with the foot pressure. Because I could see this when I was attaching the elastics in every one of my garments. I had to continuously stop and lift the foot in order for the elastics to be fed evenly underneath and not shift or cause it not to be feeding straight underneath. This is noticeable in some of my close-ups. For the bra, I decided to attach a 90 type design to the bottom of the bra again. I simply, like the underwear, took the bottom measurement. However, this time I did not cut out a rectangle. So the bottom of the 90 is larger than top measurement, making it flare out the side seams. I also again cut along the lace following the embroidery to create an uneven bottom that wouldn't fray or come apart. Again, here are just some photos of the bra not on the mannequin so you could see how it looks. In general, I'm very happy with this design. I think it's very cute. I think the use of like a 90-ish kind of element to the bra and underwear gives it this like very much like mysterious, kind of covered but not covered sexiness to it, which I think is really cool. Here's just a list of references I used. In general, I was very happy with this assignment. And I want to thank you for the semester and have a good holiday.